Hello and thanks for joining us on the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja. I am Jumbo Yusuf. First, the headlines. Senate passes Electric Power Sector Reform Act Amendment Bill. Bureau of Public Enterprise directed to source for investors as federal government set to commercialize Bank of Agric. Plus, Nigerian High Commission in Ghana debunks allegation of inhuman treatments of Nigerians awaiting deportation. Now the news in details. The Senate has passed the Electric Power Sector Reform Act Amendment Bill. The bill seeks to prohibit theft of electricity and its supply infrastructures in Nigeria. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Unko reports.
Well, the devastating effects of chemical and biological weapons have become a global concern. And as a signatory to the United Nations Weapons Convention Protocol, the Senate, in its wisdom, commenced the process of domesticating the protocol. And then during the debate on this bill, senators were actually particular about the essence of this bill, what it seeks to achieve for Nigeria, especially in the area of enhancing security in the nation. And then I have with me Senator Jibrin Barau, who actually presented the report that was considered and passed today. Legislative business in the Senate at Tuesday's plenary kicked off with a letter from President Muhammadu Buhari stating reasons for withholding his assent on the Nigerian Correctional Service Bill.
Section 44D of the bill, which seeks to fund the special non-custodial fund, with 5% of all fines paid to the federal courts, violates the provisions of Section 81 and 84 of the 1999 Constitution as amended.
Matters of infrastructural development continued on the floor as Senate considered and passed the bill for the amendment of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act No. 6 of 2005.
To punish any person on conviction who have engaged in willful and criminal damage to public power infrastructure, installation, equipment and facilities.
The Chemical Weapons Prohibition Bill was also passed.
Signatory to the Chemical and Biological Weapon Convention are required to establish or designate national authority that will serve as a national focal point to ensure effective coordination.
Senate passed the National Board for Technical Education Repeal and Reenactment Bill.
Will promote the institutionalization of professional and technical skills development for sustenance of our national economy.
On the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
6 reintroduced bills were passed for first reading, including the National Assembly Budget and Research Office Bill from the National Assembly. Ignatius Unko, NTA News.
The federal government has set in motion the process of commercializing and recapitalizing the Bank of Agriculture. The initiative is aimed at rescuing the financial institution from total collapse and to meet its primary objective. Musa Baba Aliu has details.
The Bank of Agriculture is a federal government institution established in the 70s primarily to provide financial support to farmers towards boosting their production. Records have shown that the bank has been doing well at initial stage, providing simple interest rate loan, especially for those who are into production of cash crops. 2 decades later, the bank started recording losses with high cases of non-performing loans, among other challenges. The Bureau of Public Enterprises has been mandated to ensure the recovery of the loans and commence the process of commercializing the bank.
The federal government will retain only a minority equity stake, while farmers' cooperatives and the private sector will acquire a substantial and controlling stake in the bank.
To this end, an advisory committee has been constituted with a membership drawn from the Ministry of Finance, that of Agriculture, and the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Let's have a strong bank, a farmers' bank, a bank of agric, so that this country can continue to do great things. We've done quite a bit. We're now number 1 in rice, number 1 in cassava, number 1 in yams, we're number 1 in maize, even though our maize is not selling because of issues of aflatoxin and mycotoxin. We're dealing with that. At the time we were number 1 in groundnuts, We're going back there.
From Abuja, Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
Now, a national policy and regulations framework to provide sustainable security to water source against potential threat and harmful threats resulting from various human activities is being developed. Minister of Water Resources Suleiman Adamu says the framework is to provide legal backing for national water security policy for improved and reliable water quality and better livelihood. Justin Bem Unyi reports.
Water is the next most important resource to man after oxygen. Abstraction point at which this water resource can be accessed for use, like rivers, dams, lakes, streams, canals, and irrigation channels, is referred to as water source. In line with best global practices, there is a growing concern of recent among stakeholders on the need to provide effective security to water source and adopt water source protection. The water source protection policy framework is now coming on the heels of the fact that water supply systems are increasingly facing major operational problems in the form of escalating water treatment costs, high costs of maintenance of pumps or treatment equipment, and fluctuating water quantities. All this came to the fore at the inauguration of a technical committee to this effect.
The National Water Source Protection Policy Framework is expected to recommend the establishment of the following. Number one, to set up special national security brigade, similar to security and civil defense corps, for the purpose of water source protection task. Two, to amend water use and license regulations of 2016 and adopt water source protection plan, a mandatory requirement in the water process of issuance of water use licenses or authorizations processes, similar to EIA regulations.
The water source protection regulations is expected to particularly, one, promote reliable access to water of sufficient quantity and quality for basic human needs.
The National Water Source Protection Policy, if developed, would provide for National Critical Infrastructure Protection Advisory Group, whose task is to partner with the Nigeria Integrated Water Resources Management Commission on information sharing and coordinate threat information. In Abuja, Justin Bem Unyi, NTA News.
The Buhari Media Organization has hailed the military authorities, the police and other security agencies over their successes in recent frontal offensive to stem the tide of insecurity in the country. In a statement by its chairman, Ni Akinsuju, the group says the successes of the stories of the last few days are a consequence of proactive action initiated by the president after an extraordinary meeting with service chiefs, heads of security agencies and ministers saddled with the responsibility of overseeing security agencies. The group also noted that the international dimension of the security challenge, especially in the northern Nigeria. President Buhari was in charge at the weekend for an emergency regional security meeting involving about 29 countries, which was a good opportunity for the president to seek international support for the quest to stifle supply line of small arms and light weapons to bandits and insurgents terrorizing some parts of the country. The group also emphasized that it was gratifying that the military and the police have risen to the occasion by recording Zamfara State as well as the Abuja-Kaduna corridor. According to the group, President Buhari has acquitted himself well on the basis of the performance of security forces against banditry, insurgency and kidnapping in recent days. The nation appreciates sacrifices of these gallant men and women who daily put their lives on the line in the interest of Nigeria, and the country is solidly behind them. In another development, Nigerians have been advised to stop the trend of reinforcing negative stereotypes in matters that are purely criminal. The Buhari Media Organization, which gave this advice, said there is need to separate the actions of a few people from that of their ethnic nationalities. In a statement signed by its chairman, Ni Akinsuju, and Secretary Cassidy Maduke, the group said that the media should help by reporting such cases clearly without profiling a particular ethnic group. Buhari Media Organization pointed out that it would be better to identify criminals without necessarily dragging in their ethnicity. The statement lamented that it is an act that has been going on for a while, which has created an impression over the years that certain acts of criminality are the exclusive preserve of various ethnic nationalities. Now, to help teachers keep up to date on the most current concept of teaching, the Defense and Police Officers' Wives Association, DPOA, is embarking on a 3-day workshop to promote professional growth among her teachers. Linda Ogidi reports.
Learning and professional development is important for students' achievement. With the team, higher order thinking and teaching skills, a recipe for national development. President of DPOA emphasizes the importance of the training.
We want them to be creative, we want them to be evaluative. So that's why we know it's very important to train and retrain our teachers for improvement.
The teachers were also encouraged to be conversant with techniques that will enhance their thinking and teaching skills.
If foundation is set, is in order, is concrete, you find out that these children skyrocket easily without stress.
The school is becoming bigger. The secondary school is also in it. So we need to learn how to make the students to become a kind of self-sustaining students. So they need to gain here, we make them to work on it and to serve themselves instead of us to be with them all the time.
It is agreed here that workshops like this are vital for an effective teacher learning and professional development. In Abuja, Linda Ogidi, NTA News.
The judiciary is next. The FCT High Court sitting in Maitama has dismissed the embezzlement charges filed against the suspended Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Munir Gorzo, by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission. The court ruled that the severance package paid to him is in line with the guidelines of the commission. Olabode Arewa reports. Sincerely apologize for the low audio in that report. Moving on, the Court of Appeal sitting in Lagos has affirmed the conviction of a Congolese, Kutumisa Nabuatu Blaise, and the forfeiture of $551,225,000 to the federal government. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has arraigned the convict on April 21, 2015 before a federal high court in Lagos, before Justice Ibrahim Buba. Lawyer to the EFCC, Mr. Abbo Mohammed, had also urged Justice Buba to convict Blaise following his failure to declare the said money in his possession to the men of the Nigerian Customs Services at the entry point into Nigeria. Justice Abba said the action of Blaise is contrary to Section 2, Subsection 3 of the Money Laundering Prohibition Act 2011, as amended by Act No. 1 of 2012. In his judgment on July 7, 2015, Justice Buba upheld the argument of the EFCC lawyer and sentenced Blaise accordingly. The judge further directed that the said money which Blaise failed to declare should be forfeited through the federal government. Dissatisfied with the verdict of Justice Buba, the convict approached the Court of Appeal in Lagos for redress, asking the appellate court to set aside the judgment of the lower court. But in a unanimous judgment delivered on March 29, 2019 by 3 justices of the Court of Appeal, the appellate court affirmed the verdict of the lower court on why the judgment of the lower court was affirmed. Justice Yakubu, who read the lead judgment of the appellate court, said he has perused the pieces of evidence proffered by the witnesses at the court vis-a-vis the findings made by the learned trial judge, which ultimately culminated in the conviction of the appellant. You are still on the news on NTA International. After the break, more reports. Thanks for staying. Nigeria and the British government are working together to ensure a change in behavior among young people, particularly ladies who always think life abroad is promising. It is in that regard that a campaign tagged "Not for Sale" is launched in Abuja. Usman Aliu now reports.
It's a campaign to inspire young people to realize the abundant opportunities in Nigeria, which can support them and make their dream a reality without risking their lives by embarking on desperate journeys to unknown destinations. The Not for Sale campaign is not just a woman's parley, but a platform for an inquisitive mind to ponder about sexual exploitation and domestic servitude, which young girls and children fall victim when trafficked. Revelations such as the story of Gift, a lady rescued from Libya who is now established and successful, were shared. But still, more is expected on awareness for others to understand the value of opportunities in Nigeria.
There are positive alternatives here in Nigeria for people to follow and have successful outcomes like the people featured in the campaign.
Today is it's early stages. This is the launch of this campaign. This is a new direction that we're taking in partnership with the government of Nigeria, but we think it will be a positive direction and one that many people will be able to get behind.
I mean, it's going to send a very strong signal to so many youths, you know, young boys and girls, and we're hoping that this campaign will drive home the message more to the youths. And yes, I think this is the beginning of the end of human trafficking.
The proponent of this movement, Not for Sale, believe that the campaign will further strengthen sustainable cooperation on social development between Nigeria and the UK government. In Abuja, Usman Aliu, NTA News.
Meanwhile, new techniques adopted in human trafficking, especially in the Northwest, compelled the Nigerian Immigration Service to convene a strategic meeting in Kano to spur the service to be more proactive in dealing with the problem through development of sophisticated equipment and identification of areas suspected to harbor human traffickers and their victims before moving to border areas. Mohammed Rabiu Ali reports.
Trafficking in persons and smuggling of migrants have been a serious source of concern which affect the country's image. But the quest to curb the menace to the barest minimum by the present administration is yielding positive result. It was in line with the renewal impetus to halt human trafficking that the zonal meeting brought together controllers of immigration from northwest Nigeria to fashion out modern techniques to meet contemporary challenges. Assistant Controller General Zombi Champrika Oyedeji stressed the need for controllers to brace up and key into the directives of Controller General of Immigration in addressing the problem of trafficking in persons.
We are saying no to trafficking in women. Our mothers, our sisters, no to trafficking in children. The youth are the leaders of tomorrow.
On the issue of banditry and kidnapping in Sokoto and Zamfara states, the ACG commended the collaborative effort of the security agencies.
Once we gather them, that is why we need the cooperation of everybody up to the ward level. Give any security personnel whom you feel can take the information to the right place so that our country can be rid of this menace.
During the meeting, the ACG Zombi inspected the newly installed walkie-talkie for effective internal and external communication for officers and men of the Nigeria Immigration Service. Muhammad Rabiu Ali, NTA News.
The Nigerian High Commission in Ghana says its attention has been drawn to a video that has gone viral in social media, purportedly showing maltreatment of Nigerians awaiting deportation from Ghana. The High Commissioner, Ambassador Femi Abikoye, in a statement said the point in time where Nigerians were ever subjected to such inhuman treatment by any Ghanaian authority. Ambassador Abikoye said, and I quote, "It is true that some Nigerians who were basically found guilty of overstaying in Ghana beyond the 90 days ECOWAS grace period without regularizing their stay and being deported periodically. End of quote. He said the High Commission wishes to add that both Nigeria and Ghana have always enjoyed excellent bilateral relations on all fronts and are still doing so, including handling such deportation exercise, using international best practices, including the holding facilities for deportees in line with the United Nations Convention Against Torture, Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment for Punishment. Let's now join Uche Ogochukwu for happenings in other parts of the globe.
Hello there. Reports from Algeria say chairman of the country's Constitutional Council, Tayyip Belaïs, has resigned. He would have been in charge of a process to draw up a new constitution, which is one of the key points of the political transition following the resignation of President Abdulaziz Bouteflika. The protesters are still pushing for the former president's cabinet members and associates to be replaced. African Union Peace and Security Council has given Sudan's military junta a 15-day ultimatum to transfer power to a civilian-led political authority or face suspension from the Pan-African body. In a statement after a meeting at its headquarters in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, the council said a military-led transition would be contrary to the aspirations of the people of Sudan. It demands that the military council step aside and hand over power to a transitional civilian-led political authority in line with the demand of the masses who have continued to protest. And the European Union Summit Chairman Donald Tusk said the possibility that Britain might give up on leaving the European Union should not be dismissed and urged politicians not to take hasty exit due to delayed negotiations. That does it from here. I am Uche Ogochukwu.
Next is Sports Update with Ayodeji Makinde.
Action resumes at the 13th Africa Under-17 Cup of Nations in Tanzania Wednesday after